Good day everyone! How's your Christmas break? Nakakaon ba og fruit salad o mango float ang tanan? I hope so. But kidding aside, I hope that you had a great time spending your Christmas break with your family, friends, and loved ones. So for today, we will have another topic.
Our topic for today is about reflective teaching. But before anything else, let me present to you our learning objectives. So at the end of the discussion, the learners are expected to define reflective teaching in their own words, gain understanding about Kolb's experiential learning cycle, and identify the advantages and disadvantages of reflective teaching. So we have here a question that says, how do you reflect? So supposedly this question is for you guys, but because we are having a recorded discussion, so I will be the one to answer this. So, when we reflect, we think about what was done. We think about what happened on a certain experience or a certain situation. We will think about what didn't work or what worked, and we critically evaluate what we would do differently in the future. So, journal and notes are some ways to do reflection. It helps develop skills and review their effectiveness. So, reflection is about questioning, but in a positive way. What you do and why you do it, and then deciding whether there is a better or more efficient way of doing it in the future. So, reflection allows us to think back on a certain experience and learn out from it. So, next is we have your reflective teaching. So it is a process whereby teachers reflect on their teaching practices in order to examine the overall effectiveness of their instructive approaches. So improvement or change in teaching methods may be required depending on the outcome of this analytical process, which is based on critical reflection. So reflective teaching is a process through which teachers reflect on their teaching practices and examine the overall effectiveness of their delivery and assessment approaches. It involves reviewing their personal teaching beliefs and using reflective practices to analyze and deliver information with the ultimate goal of generating feedback. So it allows teachers to evaluate and improve their teaching practices on the basis of self-assessment, observation, and feedback. Thus, it not only helps the teachers with improved teaching methodologies, but also benefits the students in multiple ways because as what and how they are taught also keeps on improving. Next is reflective teacher. So a reflective teacher is a person who transcends the technicalities of teaching and thinks beyond need to improve instructional techniques. So according to Schulman 1990, they are those teachers who review, reconstruct, reenact, and critically analyze their own and their students' performance. So a reflective teacher becomes accountable for their students' progress because by assessing the strengths and weaknesses in their teaching, they will develop an awareness of the factors that control and prevent learning, and they will gain understanding on how the student or how their students learn best. Next is we have here the Kolb's experiential learning cycle. First stage is the concrete experience or the experiencing something. So this stage requires the teacher to experience something. So the experience here is the teacher teaching and the students inside the classroom. For instance, the teacher is teaching the subject history, so that will be the concrete experience. Next is the reflective observation or thinking about an experience. So this stage requires the teacher to think about the experience. So the teacher will going to look back on her discussion. She will reflect more deeply in what happened during her discussion. The questions need to be asked are, what worked? Did my students learn using storytelling method during the discussion about the World War I? Or what failed? Or did it fail? Should I have used another method instead? And why did the situation arise? Or why did others and I behave the way we did? So next is the abstract conceptualization or learning from experience. So initially, in this stage, the teacher tries to find different ways for dealing with the situations and think up strategies. Here, the teacher should focus on the meaning of their reflection and other possibilities, acknowledging both things that went well and things that didn't. So, questions that will ask by the teachers to themselves are, what could I have done, or what could I have done better or differently? So instead of storytelling, should using discussion narration method more suitable? Or how can I improve? How can I improve myself to deliver an interesting and productive discussion?
The final stage is the active experimentation or putting into practice the learning. So the final stage is about putting what you learn into practice. This is about translating your analysis and explanation into place and actions moving forward. So upon realizing the lacking elements or methods during the discussion, the teacher is now taking her reflections and thoughts back into practice and try out the new strategies. Some may work, some may not. So this is then automatically the basis for the new cycle, as the experience within the active experimentation stage become the new concrete experience. So in every cycle, there should be a change or improvement if the teacher, if upon the doing the reflective cycle, the teacher will find things that didn't work in the discussion, so there should be a change or improvement. The types of reflective teaching. First is the reflection in action. It takes place while the teacher is inside the classroom. Teacher starts observing everything as it is happening, and the teacher realizes while teaching itself what is working and what is not in both the teaching and learning process. So reflection is in action is reflection during the doing stage. It is carried out during the lesson rather than reflecting on how you would do things differently in the future. So this is an extremely efficient method of reflection as it allows you to react and change an event at the times it happens. For example, in the classroom where a teacher is teaching about industrial revolution, where she planned to do it by presenting video clips, yet she observed that the students do not understand the topic well, so in order to respond and overcome the situation, she asked the students what part of the topic they find it difficult, and she explained it to them clearly. So reflection in action allows you to deal with surprising incidents that may happen in a learning environment. Questions may ask teachers to themselves during the lesson include, are the students engaged in this activity, or are my lesson objectives being met, or are the students learning? Next is the reflection on action. It takes place after the teaching session has ended. So teacher reflects on his or her teaching in the classroom and find ways on how the teaching process can improve. So more informally, teachers often do reflection on action at the end of their lesson, during their free period, at home, or in their drive home from work. And for a more formal process, it may take place with journaling and mentor-teacher observation. So teachers who reflect on their teaching critically analyze their past lessons to improve their teaching and student learning. One key to reflect on prior lessons is writing down your ideas. So questions the teacher may ask themselves while reflecting on their teaching include, how did the activity go? What changes would I make next time? Or what can I do tomorrow to follow up on today's discussion? The third one is the reflection for action. So these two takes place after the teaching is over. It is a more longer and critical process. The teacher looks back at the information gathered in the classroom for improving the teaching methods to provide a satisfactory learning process to the students. So teachers spend time analyzing alternatives to simply covering the content and meeting the learning standards, as well as finding ways to help students develop a conceptual understanding of the content. So teachers will spend substantial time reviewing the content, developing ways to relate the content to students and personal lives, and creating activities that are student-centered and differentiated to various learning styles. Questions that teachers may ask themselves while preparing for their teaching are, how can I best meet the needs of all students in this lesson? Or how can I break the content into manageable parts? Or how will I assess the student learning during this activity? Now we have here some tools and methods to use in reflective teaching. First, we have reflection journals where the teachers are going to record or write down their experiences during the discussion. So they will write what worked and what failed and their observations during the discussion. Next, the audio recording practices. So this is also an effective tools or methods to reflect because teachers can easily review their past discussion by viewing the video or listening to the audio, and teachers can observe important details during their teaching. Just like the modulation of their voice, is it too soft that the students can hear it clearly, or is it too loud? Is this irritating to listen? Or
or their way, their posture during teaching, and their gestures also. Next is the teaching portfolio and questions at the end of every lesson. So asking questions at the end of every lesson is also important in reflective teaching so that the teacher can assess if the students really understood the topic, and so that the teacher can decide whether the teaching methodology or strategies she had used is effective enough for the students to learn. And next is student evaluation, or like the midterm and end of term. So if the students can get higher scores or higher grades, so it means the methods used by teacher in teaching is really effective or appropriate to the learner's learning preferences. Next is the peer review of teaching. So teachers can take turns observing each other's classes as a basic for critical reflection and discussion about teaching approaches. So regular observation of teachers by other teachers or supervisors can provide positive feedback on teaching, as well as help identify areas that might need attention. It also can be used to enable teachers to share approaches and teaching strategies, and a teacher can collect information the colleague is interested in obtaining. Next is getting students' feedback. So an important point is that students' feedback can provide teachers with unique data and cannot be obtained by the other tools, because students always have many things to say and feel about the teaching and learning process, whether they find some difficulties or not, or whether they like the lesson or not, or whether they find the lesson motivating or not. Then let's move on to the advantages of reflective teaching. So first, reflective teaching helps create confident teacher. So reflective teaching develops a teacher's ability to understand how students learn and the best ways to teach them. By reflecting on your teaching, teacher can identify any barriers to learning that students have. So you can create, or they can create lessons which we teach any content with students have not been able to access, to allow them to overcome any obstacles and develop. Being reflective will make sure that a teacher will have a wider range of skills as they find new ways to teach. This will develop their confidence in the classroom as they find the best ways to deliver knowledge of a certain subject. So next is reflective teaching. Make sure you are responsible for yourself and your students. So reflecting on teaching will help teacher to understand how their students best learn, and will allow them to be accountable for their progress by assessing the strengths and weaknesses in their own teaching. They will then develop an awareness of the factors that control and prevent learning. So the reflection process will help the teachers to understand themselves and the way to teach, and by asking themselves questions and self-assessing, they will understand their strengths and other areas where development might be needed. So reflecting allows them to understand how they help others to achieve and what this looks like in practical learning environment. Next is it encourages innovation. So reflective practice allows a teacher to adapt lessons to suit their classes. So they can create and experiment with new ideas and approaches to teaching to gain maximum success. So by varying learning and experimenting with new approaches, students have a richer learning experience. They will think more creatively, imaginatively, and resourcefully, and ready to adopt new ways and methods of thinking. Next is it encourages engagement. So by being reflective, to help teacher to challenge their own practice as they will justify decisions and rationalize choices they have made. So it encourages to develop an understanding of different perspectives and viewpoints. So these viewpoints might be those of students focusing on their strengths, preferences, and developments, or those of other colleagues sharing best practice and different strategies. When the teachers become more aware of their students' preferences and strengths, learning becomes more tailored to their needs, and so they are more curious and are equipped to explore more deeply. Lastly is reflective teaching benefits all. So by reflecting, it can create an environment which centers on the learner. So this environment will support students and other teachers all around you to become innovative, confident, engaged, and responsible. So once you start the reflective process, the quality of teaching and learning will improve. You will take account of students' various learning styles and individual needs, and plan new lessons based on this. Reflection helps focus on the learning process, so learning outcomes and results will improve as you reflect on how your learners are learning. Next is the disadvantages of reflective teaching. So we have here time consuming. Yes, reflective teaching is really time consuming because considering the busy schedules and workloads of teachers, reflective teaching really needs time reviewing past lessons, like recording down or writing down your experiences during lessons to your teacher journals, and considering that how many discussions a teacher will make in a day. Also, it takes time thinking about new methods and strategies that will suit to your learners' learning preferences. So, apart from the methods that you are comfortable with. So, reflective teaching really needs time, effort, and patience. Next, teachers can discover uncomfortable information about their own work when they practice reflective teaching. So, because reflective teaching makes you aware of your strengths and weaknesses, so it is really unavoidable for a certain teacher to feel uncomfortable to discover his or her an effective and passionate teacher is always open for criticism and always open for improvement. So they will use this weakness as a motivation to do better, to learn better, and to improve as a teacher. So I think that would be all from my presentation. Thank you very much everyone for listening.